Send your questions in online and we'll feature some during the cast. And with that, Tahm Kench is going to leave the Rift, and the Nidalee as well is going to be banned away. And C9 now on the blue side. This could change things.
Yep, but I don't think there's much to take away from that first game. It wasn't like there was a particular pick that was a huge issue. It was kind of they just got ran over. Every time that they went for a play, Samsung was able to outplay it themselves, and wasn't much of a champion thing as much as it was being a better team and better players.
Yeah, that's a very good point. However, were you wearing that last game?
So these are actually pants, believe it or not. So I was wearing these as pants, and then I realized that it just wasn't working. I had to change something up. Plus, they wouldn't show that well in the broadcast, so I put them on my head.
So you got head pants now. The American head pants dream. Markz, everyone. But all of the bans are going to come through. Victor and Olaf are going to be taken away by Cloud9, and the Syndra and Ryze once again going to be removed from Samsung Galaxy. As now Jhin being considered for that first pick for Sneaky.
Yeah, and I'm actually, I feel like Samsung Galaxy probably just devotes their counter pick to mid lane here because of the Crown versus Jensen dynamic. But it's going to be interesting to see what mid laners end up getting picked this time around. I wasn't a very big fan of the Orianna pick from Cloud9 last game, and I don't think that they really utilized it to its full potential. And already for Samsung Galaxy, there is a Kennen, so that opens up the ability for Samsung, I guess, to have an Orianna pick.
Yeah, if they'd like to. And of course, you know, Cassiopeia is still there as well. And does Cloud9 look at maybe picking that one away for Jensen? We know that he has had fantastic performances on the champion. Of course, the final against TSM, game 1, pretty damn good stuff from the player.
Yep, he definitely can perform on Cassiopeia, especially if they get one of the resourceless junglers and able to hand off the blue to him early. They had Meteos take blue buff that game in an interesting jungle pathing, so I'm not sure why they necessarily went for that. They just thought maybe they would lose it anyways. I'm not exactly sure why they didn't use that blue buff on Jensen mid. I would have preferred to see that. The other thing that I find interesting is that they thought that the Jhin was a bigger problem than the Karma, though when I was watching, I thought the Karma was really what unlocked the Jhin to kind of take over that game, because once Karma was able to live through a couple things and Jhin was able to clean up some kills from that, then the flat armor pen build starts to take over. So I'm surprised C9 thought that the Jhin was the bigger takeaway than the Karma.
There's also a lot of options of things to pair with the Karma as well. I mean, Ezreal Karma has been a good lane, Caitlyn Karma, which is what Ruler is hovering at the moment. Another one that's seen dominance, but C9 are going to take away the RekSai and the Cassiopeia, which I feel are solid pickups here, and I feel like Crown having to choose a different champion will be a good idea. However, he still has got a plethora of options, Varus being one of them.
Yeah, and this is actually, I think, definitely setting up to be a potential Varus pick, actually, and they are going to elect to go with the counter pick. So that's pretty standard. Caitlyn Karma, a very oppressive lane down there in the bottom, and Ambition bringing out his Skarner pick. So definitely lots of room for pick potential, especially with that Kennen up there in the top lane. Lots of room for setup.
Yeah, it could be very, very frightening. But Meteos is going to be, you know, possibly having a better time. Skarner not necessarily the early game dominant jungler like the Olaf, says Atlus quite optimistically.
Yeah. I think the thing I want to keep my eye on this game is what they end up going for as the support pick for C9, because once again, it looks like they're going to have the weaker bot lane, and that was a huge source of issue for that game because Jensen kind of stabilized mid after that initial kill, and then obviously Impact started losing top after winning initially, but the bot lane was really where things snowballed out of control, and it looks like they're going to be, they go for the Nami to try and keep up with the pressure of the Karma, which is a good pick, but I still think it favors Karma Caitlyn pretty heavily.
I do like the Jayce though, give Impact a little bit more of an ability to smack things around and can get CuVee out of there if he tries to get that slicing maelstrom happening in the backline. However, it does make them a relatively squishy lineup with a lot of sort of poke and then this really short-range Cassiopeia. We've seen Cassiopeias have up and down performances based on the compositions they've been involved in, and this is not necessarily looking like one that favors a Cassiopeia just because of her shorter range.
And there is that Orianna.
Bit of a hover. Maybe this is a bit of a mana hover happening right now. Oh, it's going to be locked in. I take it all back. Crown is going to take that Orianna into the mid lane. Yeah. And if he throws out shockwaves, kind of looks a little bit like a Crown, which is sort of cool.
That's only the kind of stuff Atlus will bring to the broadcast.
There we are. You know, I can't wear pants on my head, but I can say stupid things about possible crowns that shockwaves can provide.
I really like Samsung comp way better than C9. C9's is hard to pull off, only a single tank, not a ton of engage or setup for anything. Basically a Jhin ult and a Nami wave is what you're looking for, and maybe a flash RekSai and burrow, whereas Samsung has so much zone control. They have a lot of different tools for engaging. pick-off potential, wombo combo. They kind of got it all, and as well as having strong lanes in and of themselves.
And incredible disengage options at the same time. I mean, Karma, known for her ability to disengage, as well as Ambition, can just gobble up Meteos if he tries to go for that backline dive. The amount of versatility this composition has is terrifying.
Yeah, one of the things that the Korean teams have been doing this tournament is their team compositions generally tend to be a little bit more versatile than the Western teams' drafts. The other thing with this team composition is blue side RekSai. So that's going to actually have a little bit more difficulty against the red side Kennen and red side Skarner, especially because Skarner is going to be, for the most part, defensive early on, only going for match ganks or counter ganks in the mid lane and the top lane, which is directly going to play into that Kennen Jayce matchup. And then when it does reach the later stages of the game, Jayce isn't going to have the split push utility available to him.
Yeah, and how are you doing patriotism over there?
Not feeling the best. Definitely would have preferred to see Cloud9 with this comp that Samsung has, but it really does kind of come down to execution, I think, because we saw that Cloud9 was the one making more of the team plays, but they just kept getting outplayed every time they do. And usually I favor the team with the initiative, the one trying to make the plays, but the consistency with which they failed to make the plays is really terrifying.
Well, I mean, once again, we do have a Caitlyn Orianna composition, which is going to require about 3 items to really get online. So maybe Samsung not going to have the early pressure that they would have had last time. But, I mean, once again, that is just blatant optimism. And Cloud9 really will need to put all of their early power into effect. Let's see whether they can. And by all their early power, I don't even know whether it's necessarily enough. As there's the helicopter Skarner. That is fantastic.
I think the fan out here is pretty standard. I wouldn't be surprised, never mind, because they actually bumped into each other in bottom. I was going to say I wouldn't be surprised if Caitlyn Karma tried to go for a cheese in that bottom brush, but definitely they don't have any utility early on, so there's no real incentive to try to fight for vision inside of the opponent's jungle.
I did not realize that Skarner skin's emotes were so good. Because I just thought he was a lawnmower, like, and that's all he was. But
pushing that skin, huh?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I am a big fan. But as minions are spawning, let's have a look at some of the tweets, gentlemen. Lucas does tweet in and says, what does Cloud9 need to do to win this game? I feel like we've tried to come up with this, but what needs to happen, what particular points need to be executed on in order to win this?
I mean, unless you're SKT, playing a comp that C9 has been shown to be very difficult at this Worlds. A number of teams have failed it. Like the kind of more squishy, longer range pokey comps. So I think if they could get control early game, I'd like that. But the problem is that they don't necessarily win any of their lanes outright, and it's a lot of skill matchups.
Well, Jensen showing that he can certainly do more damage at level 1.
Yep, they did take an advantageous trade. One of the things, touching off of that question for Cloud9's team composition, if they can manage to go even or get an advantage in the early parts of the laning phase, as long as they can deny flank teleports from Kennen in the later stages and force Samsung Galaxy to fight inside of like a narrow corridor or a runway setting, they can win via the Jhin ultimate.
Oh my goodness, Jensen. Oh, he lands another poison. Not going to be enough. The Crown has to protect himself. And both of these mid laners are so low. You can see Ambition hanging out on the bottom side river. Crown, if he gets a QW combo, command attack dissonance.
CoreJJ roaming up to maybe look for something. The RekSai visual thing showed her though, so if they're being smart, C9 should know that the Karma's on the move.
Yeah, a lot of pings coming in. That wave is in a very good position here for Crown. But potions will keep our mid laners healthy. His Impact is shoving in CuVee over and over again. We'll see whether CuVee is going to have another good performance. As Impact throws down a good combo. Decent trade against the Kennen. We've seen Jayce actually do very well into this. And Impact needs to have a good performance to get his confidence back after what was a difficult game 1.
Right, I mean, he had such a huge CS lead, but as soon as Echo grabbed all that MR, he was able to start turning that around and start winning all the trades, and Impact really got run over. And that was kind of one of the big points that people were looking at as a possible advantage for C9 in this series, was maybe Impact can control the top side. But if they lose that, I don't think there's that many things that you can latch onto for Cloud9. So hopefully we see a better game 2 out of him.
Yeah, and one of the things right now is Orianna generally has a worse recall timer than Cassiopeia, given that Cassiopeia only needs the tier. But unfortunately, as we can see on the item, that Jensen was not able to complete actually the entire tier. And that's actually really, really problematic for recall timer. So Crown already has a really, really big advantage in the mid lane.
Not to mention 9 CS in the lead.
Yep.
17 to 26, and that's actually quite a big deal here at 4 minutes because that first buy is so important. He goes back, grabs himself an extra Doran's ring as CoreJJ is going to get stunned up. Good bubble there from Smoothie.
A lot of heavy trading going on bot side. It's going to favor C9's bot lane over the course of the laning phase because they have a sustained advantage. But if Samsung's able to keep trading this heavily, both teams will want it back pretty soon and just get their first items, the Serrated Dirk going in for the Jhin and the BF Sword for the Caitlyn.
Sneaky as well. I mean, he's going to be looking at Smoothie's mana bar in order to be able to keep making these trades like you were talking about. But Smoothie doing well, holding onto it.
Interesting thing from one of the C9 games from the group stage was he went the Essence Reaver crit build, and I actually didn't personally like it. LS, did you like going for that when he was snowballing, or would you have preferred to see the more flat pen oriented build?
I believe Deft goes for that build as well.
I think that the flat pen build is good against targets that generally have low armor values or that they have very heavy reliant first item wake ups that generally don't tend to be too powerful when it comes to the second core items. But otherwise, I think that the Essence Reaver variant of Jhin is pretty good.
You get more curtain calls too, which is
right
good.
Now. I also think that RekSai is almost always at golems looking at bottom or something. But this is actually really problematic for Cloud9 because RekSai is really far behind Skarner, even though nothing's happened. And that's primarily because the onus is on Meteos to actually make something happen. And right now, I think 100% telegraphed where RekSai is.
The other thing is, he also went for the Tiamat build. Meteos not known for going that build. He usually prefers just going the straight up Cinder Hulk. I still call it Cinder Hulk build. And it's interesting to see him go the Tiamat build thinking he's going to out-farm the Skarner or something, or maybe go look for some like duels in the jungle, but that's usually not what Meteos is really known for. So I'm surprised to see him go with this item path.
And I was laughed at when I said that any other jungle item on Skarner apart from Warrior would be a consideration, and Ambition has decided that he wants to go towards the Cinderhawk as well. Kind of cute. CoreJJ going to get stunned up. Oh, big crit from Sneaky, but not enough damage. Runs out of bullets. Well, that's a 10 CS advantage here for Sneaky on the bottom side of the map. So laning well is the Nami Jhin.
Yep, Sneaky's doing a very good job right now, and Skarner not too far off of 6. Looks like he's 1 camp away if we're looking at his experience bar. And at this point, I mean, all Ambition really has to think about is RekSai going to try anything maybe in mid lane soon? Because obviously the only vulnerability right now is going to be Crown in the mid lane. So as long as he can hit 6 safely, that ward that he just placed up there in the top lane is just to make sure that Kennen doesn't try to get dove or something. He just wants to hit level 6 and then look to basically do a flash ultimate on any lane.
Yeah.
Kind of surprised to not have seen any pink wards go down, I don't think, on the side of Samsung yet. They've had a couple recalls, both from like the mid laner and the jungler, and neither of them have dropped any. The first one, I think, is going to come right now from CoreJJ. It's not like it's super late or anything, but you see C9 already has some pink wards up as Ambition starts clearing that one out.
Really nicely timed point there, Markz. Noticing the fact that he was walking over to said pink ward. Stunning. His Ambition going to find another one there as well as Meteos. We're going to try and get the pickup. Impact doesn't find the empowered shock blast, and there's the flash. Gets the Skarner to safety.
Pretty good for Cloud9 there being able to get Ambition's flash. That's pretty much his big playmaking tool, is combining that ultimate with his flash. And that's basically a 5-minute window where he can only really use his ult as like a kind of counter tool, where he's going to try and track Meteos and counter that gank, as opposed to being able to find his own flash play.
We have an interesting Twitter question that came in as well on sort of that note, and it's from Lewis Thornton, who tweets in asking, where has Morgana been lately, and do you think we'll see her at least once at Worlds? And I bring it up purely because Black Shield versus Impale is a decent option.
I think that would be something actually pretty cute against Samsung Galaxy's team composition. The problem is that other champions offer more as the game draws more and more on than what Morgana offers. The Black Shield is really nice, but it's so specific, and it only has very specific uses in its timing.
Yeah.
That I don't think it's nearly as valuable as some other champions.
Right. You have to consider, of course, whenever you look at something like that, as well as the lane matchups. I don't think the Morgana would deal too well with some of the more heavy poke and sustain champions that we're seeing that are pretty meta right now. So that's a big concern. I mean, you might be able to get into an Alistar or something, because it can do pretty well against some of the melee matchups, but in general, it's hard to pull a Morgana off against some of the other mages.
Yeah, just always was known for counter-engage, things like that, as Meteos is looking for CuVee. Lightning rushes his way back and takes a turret shot for fun.
Definitely not the start you'd want out of Meteos' RekSai pick here. I mean, he's keeping up in farm, but the Skarner is going to become a much bigger threat in the mid and late game instead of just the kind of tanky meat shield that RekSai becomes.
Yeah. Still very early days, not quite 10 minutes just yet. And the teams are both incredibly even. However, this is exactly how game 1 played out. And that didn't feel so good if you're a C9 fan. Still, the same things need to go wrong once again for the same thing to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you could say it's almost a blessing that they took Smoothie off the Alistar. He's one of the big playmakers for his team in the early game, and when you're on Nami, it's harder to make those plays, so it's harder for Samsung to turn them around.
Oh, dear. I hate the fact that I understood exactly what you meant.
Yeah.
Well, Jensen's going to be able to clear this one up with his newly acquired blue buff. I believe Meteos would have helped him, but we don't know that because, of course, the Fog of War is turned on. Samsung Galaxy, we're seeing exactly what they're doing as Ambition's going to move around his jungle. Now with his Cinderhulk newly completed. We'll see where he goes next. I really hope he builds a Trinity Force. Like, what is this? Ambition's the Warrior into Trinity Force guy, not the Cinderhulk guy. I'm so disappointed. Now Dragon to be started up here. Ambition does have the Impale, but doesn't actually quite find the engagement. Good bubble lands onto Ambition there as well as they just turn their attention to this Dragon. Meteos locks it down and Samsung can't find the engage. There's the Shockwave flashed out, but Jensen is going to get caught. Crown just finds a little bit of poke damage on the Cassiopeia and gets a flash from Sneaky.
That was actually really tricky by C9 because you had assumed, based off what we saw, that Meteos was helping Cassiopeia with the blue buff, but he was actually bot side helping take the Dragon. So it was probably Jayce helping. That's one of those things that you would only really understand why that situation played out that way from the Fog of War stream, because you would think that I mean, when you see the whole screen, you don't think that the other team's getting confused about this kind of mix-up where Cassio's soloing or getting help from someone else while your bot lane who disappeared, Samsung probably assumes they're recalling. And
I should apologize to Samsung because I was just throwing that in there as flavor text, you know, but you're exactly right. Took advantage of some assumptions that could have been made. Does show that Cloud9 definitely still have their brains in this matchup, which is very, very good news. And now they have the Dragon control.
Yep, that Water Dragon's actually certainly going to help them early on, at least until like the 15-16 minute mark. I feel like the problem is going to come for Cloud9 though, when Kennen completes his first core item and Orianna completes her first core item, because that's going to be the timing in which Samsung Galaxy is looking to make something happen. And given how cheap Kennen's first item is relative to Jayce's wind-up, it comes a lot sooner for Samsung Galaxy than Cloud9, even if they do go even. Likewise for Caitlyn down in the bottom lane. She's much more effective early on with less items.
It's true. Does have a bit of a trough there in the mid-game.
The other big thing, too, is the fact that we see Samsung has pretty good warding in the bot side. If this game keeps stalling out like this, it's really not that bad for Samsung, assuming they can keep this vision up. You probably fight over the next Dragon, and because Cloud9's comp is so squishy, if CuVee is able to get a good flank off with that item spike that Ellis was talking about, they can basically blow a team fight up just completely. And C9, on the other hand, want to kind of set up and have more controls. We see a gank coming in here on Impact.
Well, Flash is going to be used quite early as Ambition. He's looking for the Flash Impale, doesn't close the gap enough. Crystalline Exoskeleton, not quite the movement speed that he needed. Samsung at least get the Flash on the top side.
Still a successful gank nonetheless, and now Ambition probably... Oh, well, I don't know what he's doing. I thought he was going to go into the left side jungle, because this is an instance where if Ambition goes into the left side jungle and you see no camps, then you know exactly where RekSai is. Because it gives away his entire clear path, also relative to how Impact just played out top lane.
I have another cute question from Twitter, gentlemen. Mickey Sana asks, ask LS and Mark why Harold isn't a priority objective in this meta. And I purely wanted to ask it because Harold is the best name for Rift Herald ever.
Harold?
Harold.
Oh, they actually wrote Harold.
Yeah, damn right he did.
Harold the Herald. The big reason is it's just too hard to take. It's very, very tanky. You need two people like dedicated to taking it and taking a lot of damage as they take it. And if anyone ever comes up and just contests it a little bit, it's super hard to finish because you need to keep that positioning in a certain way where you hit the backside. And it's just so easy to force people off Harold, that you just rarely see people play. Even though it's super good on a lot of top lane picks that we see in the meta right now, it's just too difficult to contest unless you're already kind of snowballing or the other team super commits to the bottom half of the map.
Well, there's only been 7 taken at Worlds so far. That is the total number of Heralds destroyed. And I mean, I know you can only do 1 a game, There's been a lot more games than 7.
People just like Herald. They just don't want to kill him.
Well,
let him return to the void.
He does end up killing himself, sort of, by 20 minutes. So
that's what the game feed says. He returns to the void.
Oh, okay. Always the optimist. Whoa.
Nice splash by Jensen, making sure not to get impaled.
Yeah, and Ambition actually going to throw out his flash there as well. Trying to get in there before Jensen could flash away, but good preemptive flash and making sure that Ambition doesn't have that tool for the next 5 minutes. It's a big deal. Oh, CuVee.
Impact. Oh, we could see a solo kill. All right, never mind. That's probably just going to be First Blood turret actually going down, unless Ambition goes over immediately. But Meteos is here to dissuade him.
Yeah, good counter gank timing.
Yep. This definitely is First Blood tower timing, which I think is really, really big if you put it on a Jayce.
This is going to be huge if they can get this. The game had been going really... Oh, they're not going to commit for it.
I feel like that's actually a pretty big mistake by Cloud9. There's no reason not to just have Meteos hug the outer edge of the turret range and just have Jayce basically burst it down, because Skarner doesn't deal any damage right now.
Especially since CuVee doesn't have TP, so you don't need to worry about some kind of cute TP flank coming in to protect the turret. I agree with LS. I think that's a huge mistake, because the game's slowing down and you're just giving Samsung more time to look for another setup play, because now that Cassio has no flash, you can probably just start it off with a Ori ult or something. Just find some other way to get that fight going. And they really need to get control of this game and build a gold lead.
One of the things that they could have done is actually raise that top tier 1 turret, have Jayce recall, move to mid lane, hand off the wave from Jensen, enable Jensen to have a recall, go to his blue, pick up the blue, wall impact still in mid, and then just 5-man rotate to Dragon and conserve teleport advantage, because there's no way that CuVee is going to be able to take down the top tier 1 turret.
There are certain moments when you can just
huge macro blunders.
You can just tell that you're a chess player, because there are so many things happening way out in the future that you're already thinking about. Good to know, as Bubble is going to come down towards the bottom side of the map. Sneaky waiting to line up this crit bullet as Ruler takes a fair bit of damage. Good exhaust onto the Caitlyn, but Cloud9 can't really make any headway down here.
Both AD carries running low on mana. Interesting to see how that'll play out for the Dragon fight, because Jhin is definitely a little bit more resource dependent to get his damage off. Caitlyn's always fine just sniping away, but Jhin really needs his ult damage and his root to be useful in a team fight. So I'm not sure how easy it is for C9 to force this dragon now. And it is another Ocean Dragon, which isn't as useful as a stacking buff compared to some of the other ones.
However, I do actually, I rate Ocean Dragon a little bit higher when you do have like poke aspects to your composition. You know, poke and siege.
Well, especially keeping it off the opposition as well. If you want to chunk people around an objective and keep them low and make them have to keep face checking you the way we saw SKT do it to Cloud9 in groups, making sure that they don't have a free regen on the Ocean Drake is really important.
Yeah.
Looks like they're going to get it for free. There can't be any sort of contention. CuVee doesn't even have teleport yet. So this is pretty nice to have a double Ocean Drake this early on. 17 minutes isn't really that late. If it was double Ocean Drake at like 25 or 30 minutes, no one cares at that point, especially with how Samsung Galaxy plays out their team fights. There's almost no sort of sustain or, you know, position fighting.
Yeah, they are going to pull the trigger and they will fight you without actually being an issue. That's a good point.
Next one is Infernal Drake, though, and that is one that both teams are definitely going to want. I think Cloud9 much more so than Samsung Galaxy.
Jhin and Cassiopeia are going to have a very good time with that particular one. It's Crown and CoreJJ going to duo these two wards. And Ruler setting up, grabbing themselves the Crystal Spire. Ambition now hanging around towards the top side, but Meteos has been in decent positions here defensively around this early to mid game. It has meant that Samsung haven't been able to grab themselves this big lead that they did have at this stage in game number 1.
Yep. It looks like, I mean, no matter what, I think we're almost always okay. Well,
God!
He walks into the trap. That's going to be first blood. Ruler played that so beautifully. The slow comes down. He's looking for the double. The ultimate comes in tower range, but of course Smoothie 11 flow should be okay. His Ambition looking for the lane gank. Actually looking to just try and shove this wave out. Back pings come in, Meteos. They just want to make sure that he can't get anything back after the bottom lane was so successful.
I feel like Ambition just needs to hold top turret here right now. Jensen's coming up, Meteos is probably here as well. He is, and they are going to get the first blood turret. And that's why I would have liked Ruler or CoreJJ to shove a little bit quicker. They missed it by like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So that's one of those situations that only happens because both junglers are seen. Usually 2v2 bottoms are usually relatively reserved, kind of just shooting abilities out, but you really do see those kind of all-ins happen as soon as you see the jungler on the map. You know that you don't have to worry about some unknown variable coming in to flank you and get extra CC and damage in. And obviously, Samsung Galaxy's bot lane just outplayed C9 straight up. They were able to land a lot of their abilities, chain CC, sneaky, and just killing in this fight.
Yeah, and we're taking another look at the replay, and that was actually really beautifully played with the tether into the trap right there. And this was a little bit uncharacteristic by Ruler. I feel like he could have continued forward to get one more auto off before the ultimate.
Yeah, could have healed through the turret, probably get an auto or two off and then ult.
Yep. So a little bit of a misplay there by him, but as we approach now into, you know, everyone has their first tier 1 items done, or their first core items, whatever. This is now going to enter into the advantageous territory for Cloud9, and Samsung Galaxy does not yet have the resources to make those cute plays with Skarner or Kennen.
Oh! Well, Crown is dead. Most certainly, there in the mid lane, as Sneaky helps set that one up as well with the curtain call. Now they're looking for a possible siege here. 4 versus about 3. They're all sort of a bit scattered on the side of Samsung. Half the health now on this turret in the mid lane, as you can see. Impact just making sure that CuVee can't get that teleport in, always threatening with the knockback to interrupt. Now Jensen and Meteos stealing away the jungle. Aggressive plays from Cloud9, and they have themselves a slight gold advantage. Really not looking perturbed.
That was a pretty tricky play by Cloud9 to get that kill. I was just looking at it, and Sneaky and Smoothie were messing around near the race, kind of contesting vision against Samsung, and then they had Meteos go over the wall while the other people were messing around with the vision. So Samsung probably thought that this was just a vision fight, and out of nowhere it's a gank onto mid, and the rest of the team isn't there to support Crown. So it was a nice play messing around with the vision. You're going to see it here, how he just comes out of nowhere while the rest of the team was more messing around near the river and rates.
And
range, pretty big.
Pretty clean kill right there. It was actually very nice done by Cloud9, and you know, as this does move on, I feel like the next Inferno Drake is probably going to be the explosive fight, and I would give the edge to Cloud9 as that approaches. Also, I think Impact has been doing a phenomenal job up in top lane. And I mean, just looking at this from a perspective of, you know, Samsung Galaxy's vision, you know, there's nothing really that they can do. They can't make any sort of plays against top tier 1. They can't do anything in mid lane. And it's all going to come down to the Dragon, but they don't have any vision control behind Dragon Pit, so there's basically no way for CuVee to get into the enemy team. So they're going to end up having to fight a Jhin ultimate head-on.
Which could be very difficult. C9 certainly want to be utilizing every advantage that they can possibly find. Clearing out vision now. As you can see, CoreJJ wanted to try and contest that, but they, like you said, didn't have the vision available. And Ruler has to deal with this wave that's getting shoved in. Deadly Flourish going to go slightly wide there by Sneaky. Just keeping the pressure up.
Did sneak that one ward in behind the Dragon Pit. It might be the ward that CuVee is going to need to get a flash TP flank kind of play off, but it's not like the easiest one, because if they just play to the top side, I mean, you have to run all the way through there, and if there's any vision there on Cloud9's side, they're going to see him coming.
Well, Samsung setting themselves up a defensive line of traps. Delicious cupcakes available here on the bottom side of the map. Markz, I believe, almost fell over.
These headsets, man. I'm used to being wireless on the analyst desk.
Aha. I think it might have to do with the pair of pants you're wearing around your ears.
It's constricting blood flow to my head.
All the patriotism.
Yeah, too much freedom.
Oh, the irony. As Crown clears out that minion wave very, very easily.
20 seconds. 20 seconds till Drake. And now, well, less than that now. Now we're at 5 seconds. And this is really problematic because they have absolutely no vision except for that one lone ward behind Dragon. And that ward could actually be the savior for this game.
Well, as you can see, Samsung definitely want to fight for this particular Dragon. 4-man stack. They even have CuVee down here as well, waiting for that possible flank as they clear out the vision. Wave pushing back for Samsung on the top side of the map as well. So they're taking good control as now Ambition. Oof. Crystalline Exoskeleton. Speedy at the moment, looking for the potential stun on a Meteos. Playing that big front line, and this seems to be all they needed from the Skarner. Confident in the rest of their damage, just want a big tanky front line. That Lawnmower doing some work here.
Yeah, the interesting thing... Okay, well, this is actually a really poor decision by Cloud9. They might actually win the... Oh, that's really bad.
Taken by Ambition. Meteos pulled into his team. You can see CuVee wants to try and find his opportunity for slicing Maelstrom. He doesn't. It's going to be Samsung Galaxy just walking away with the dragon.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that I personally don't like about the poke comp is that you often feel like you have so much less follow-up to your frontliner. Like, Ambition's not afraid to walk into that pixel brush and just clear pink ward a couple times. And C9 doesn't really want to poke him. They want to poke other targets, and they never really got any good poke down onto Samsung. So they felt confident in just starting that dragon off, and then other than Ruler getting hit a little bit by the Jhin ult and a shock blast, there really wasn't any damage done to their backline. So as long as they just stayed clumped up on one side, C9 has a really hard time walking forward with only a single tank, basically, who doesn't have any real threat unless he's going to come flashing in with an unburrow.
Yeah. Well, Impact is going to switch down here to this mid lane. Clear that one out. Should be quite easy. You can see Ruler now on the top side of the map, looking to grab that outer turret if he can. Samsung Galaxy just looking to utilize their Caitlyn for exactly what Caitlyn does best, which is shoot structures. Oh, double. Does catch him, just flat out doesn't care about it. There's a big stack of minions as Meteos sped up by the passive of Smoothie and that Tycaller's Blessing. Not going to be able to find his way in, as Ambition is most certainly up here as well, looking for that potential 3v3 counter gank opportunity.
And I mean, as we move forward, I feel like Samsung Galaxy is actually getting away with stuff that they shouldn't be able to right here. And I think it actually started with that dragon play, where I think that they actually funneled into an unfavorable position that Cloud9 could have just conceded the dragon pit in favor of a lot of other advantages across the map, including the mid-tier 1 turret. But because they dropped the ball on that, and they dropped the ball with responding late to the top lane rotation, which I feel was pretty telegraphed.
Right.
They're now in a pretty bad position, and the game is ultimately going to reset into just this defensive, wonky, passive lane phase type thing, and this is not what Cloud9 wants to happen. It's not necessarily bad, but I feel like they're not doing anything, and so that's going to work towards Samsung Galaxy's element of just reaching that late game where they're going to be most comfortable.
As you can see as well, I mean, Samsung Galaxy setting themselves up to take this outer turret on the top side of the map. We can see their vision spotting out exactly where C9 are and are not by that Gromp buff. And there's the teleport. They're looking for the flank. As Ambition possibly could be caught first. The teleport is going to complete as in goes CuVee. Flashes. Protobel's going to be that triple stun. Massive shockwave. And Samsung Galaxy rip C9 apart. Impact trying to play the hero, but he's just not enough. There's Rulers there. He's going to pick up the kill, and that was disgusting.
And that happened in the perfect place for Samsung as well, because as soon as they finish that fight off, they just turn right onto Baron buff. So not only are they going to get the 4 kills, they're going to get the biggest objective available on the map.
Oh my goodness, and Ambition just shield tanking it up. The Baron is going to screech here at 27 minutes in. And that could not have been more perfect from Samsung, honestly.
That was a perfect flank from CuVee, and the ultimate on Crown was just absolutely gorgeous. Impact's teleport in was a little bit delayed, but honestly, I don't think that it really changes too much. And the fact that they pick up Baron off of this is the opposite of what is good.
The opposite of what is good.
Bad, one might say.
Yeah, I was looking for new adjectives in the last game, and I'm not going to go with that one, I don't think.
It's good and bad.
But we do need different ones. That is very true, because Samsung just seem to be getting things right, left, right, and center.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we were talking about, is just if Kennen ever gets a flank, gets a good TP ward setup, and with that slow rotation to the top side that LS was mentioning, where Cloud9 basically had their whole turret chipped away, during that time they lost total vision control of their top side jungle. So as both teams started grouping up around there, Samsung has excellent wards to choose a fight with, and they managed to pinch C9 there.
Well, you can now see them pushing up this inner turret in the mid lane. That Baron buff going to be helping them, but still waiting for this minion wave for quite some time. Ruler going to set up his traps. Ambition going to enjoy a bubble. And Meteos
like a bubble.
Yeah. Whoop. There it is, Jensen. Just happy to take that one. Ebb and Flow going to be there to keep him healthy. Miasma going to try and deter Samsung as Ruler nets himself out of the way of the flourish.
So this is one of those situations you're pretty happy that Samsung did not manage to pick up any of those Ocean Drakes. If you're a C9 fan, you want this poke to stick, because you really don't have that many other ways to get Samsung off a turret. You're not really threatening an engage of any kind, so you really need to land some poke here and hope you get them low enough that they're afraid to keep sieging on you.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the biggest weaknesses of Cloud9's team composition, is they don't really have a way to deal with being pushed underneath their turret. And even though Samsung Galaxy doesn't really have a way to pressure turrets outside of Caitlyn, the rapid fire cannon on Ruler this early and at this point in the game with Baron buff is just way too oppressive for anything that Cloud9 is trying to handle right now.
Yeah, it's a 3-item Caitlyn. I mean, it's terrifying in so many different ways, especially here at 30 minutes. His ambition, he loves his time in Bubble Land.
Keep giving him the bubbles.
Yeah, loves it. But he's going to be absolutely fine there as well. It's going to be 5 turrets to 1 in favor of Samsung. Really making this Orianna Caitlyn composition work out. And I mean, that's difficult to deal with if you're a C9 fan, because it just shows that Samsung pick up the 2 important picks that C9 had in the last game. Make it look like it's a pretty decent strategy here moving into game 2.
Yeah, I mean, if you start getting control with a Baron buff, you throw some traps down, the ball zones people, throw Karma Shield on the Caitlyn, let her hit the turret, maybe throw the Ori Shield on her as well. It's kind of hard for any comp to deal with that, and especially when you don't have that many frontliners or engage on C9. Just basically a flash Cassio ult's the biggest thing you're worried about, but that's pretty telegraphed.
I also really like the fact that Ruler went for QSS as the 4th item. I think he pretty much knows at this point the only way that C9 can actually win a team fight is by basically picking him off immediately at the very start of it or something, and then dealing with the sustain / combo damage that comes out of Kennen and Orianna when they're on and off cooldown. So the QSS I think is a really intelligent buy. And now I feel like it's just very, very cookie cutter rotations to the tier 2 bottom turret and having Crown shoving in mid, because there's almost, again, no ability for Cloud9 to respond to this anyway.
Yeah, huge wave in the top lane as well, as now Ruler, he's got engaged on CoreJJ, got bubbled, but massive shields come out. You can see Meteos looking for some more CuVee, very defensive slicing Maelstrom, but works well as Meteos is going to fall down. There's the shockwave on Ambition, his impact is pulled back in. Ambition actually happy to get underneath this turret as the Lawnmower will eventually fall down. Sneaky takes that kill as CuVee in trouble, maybe an overextension now as Crown. He's going to fall, that's the double kill for Jensen. And C9 do get one back. It's a 2 for 3.
Yep, that was basically just Samsung really overreaching. They already killed the front line of C9. They can play it slow pretty much from there, maybe pick up one more, but then CuVee's basically past the turret trying to get onto some extra targets on Cloud9, and that's just unnecessary. Not enough to throw the game, but a little bit of a kick to the momentum.
Overreach. Yeah.
We saw Samsung Galaxy actually doing this against TSM. So here, where they almost picked off Jensen, and then Ambition flashes in, he kills Meteos. I feel like that ultimate should have hit, and I think they all thought that it should have hit. And maybe that actually would have tilted Ambition a little bit there. CuVee goes in way too far, and then Crown is tanking turret aggro for far too long. I think Ruler even actually could have healed him at the end there and prevented him from dying. So that was definitely mechanical misplays from Samsung Galaxy.
Well, on the back of that, I do have a good question that has come in via Twitter. Googlemeister tweets in saying, what can C9 do to come back from this? And I'm not looking too good after the Infernal Steal, but that last team fight was looking like it was some possible hope now for the team. What do they now have to do to try and nail home getting themselves back in? It's only 6,000 gold.
Right. I mean, C9's scaling is actually really good in terms of the damage. Like, Cassio is a huge late game threat. Jayce is another one who's going to do a ton of damage as the game keeps going on. Jhin as well. And so if I was C9, I'd try and stem the bleeding as much as possible, farm up, and then the next Baron, you have a lot of poke. So if Samsung isn't clean in their engage, you can kind of punish it like you saw there. If you can start kiting back, it's not the end of the world. Because if you lose Meteos, he's still not like the core of your team. So as long as they don't get a clean engage onto your backline, you're okay. And so if you're contesting a Baron and Samsung's getting poked and they're taking Baron damage, I think that's the situation that C9 needs to win in order to come back in this game.
Yep. Definitely going off what he just said, the Baron is their way back into it. They need to use the Jhin ultimate to dissuade Samsung Galaxy from trying to to get the second Baron of the game. And it's basically going to come down to a vision fight surrounding Baron. They can't get flanked by a Kennen. And we're going to
Speaking of Kennen flanks.
Yeah, he's going to throw down the Zhonya's, giving Impact a way to get out there. So the flash immediately is CuVee. Oh my goodness, he actually might be caught out.
Nope, Jhin ult's down. Wasted it mid, trying to pick off Crown or something.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty poor flash from CuVee. After impact flashes, there's absolutely zero reason to flash on Jayce, because even if he kills Jayce there, it doesn't really do anything, because the tier 2 bottom turret isn't really worth a lot. Even if you're arguing that, okay, maybe it opens up some sort of Baron potential, I really don't think that it does, just because Jhin's ultimate is still available, and they have the Nami and the Cassiopeia. So again, going back to Cloud9's thing, is they just need to make it to 4 or 5 items, because that's when QSS starts coming out almost on every champion for them.
Yeah.
And that's when it really begins to hurt CuVee and Ambition.
Going back to that original point about the fact that CuVee and Impact both traded flashes as well, I mean, you have to think, looking at the fact that Baron is just up, having that off CuVee is probably more important. Jayce just wants to sit back and throw out Shock Blast, where CuVee will be wanting to flash into that backline with the Slicing Maelstrom.
Yep.
So good news, most certainly. It's always good to reiterate the good news for Cloud9
As a Cloud9 fan, you gotta
Yeah.
look for any good news anywhere you can find it.
I just keep looking over, and all the patriotism is just emanating off you.
Join us.
Well, I am at the moment. I'm here. Don't worry. Well, Ambition now just putting his face in it, clearing out wards where they can. He's very, very tanky now with the Locket of the Iron Slurry. Almost has the Guardian Angel there as well. Dead Man's Plate.
So this is a pretty good, well, this is actually isn't a great position for C9. They're cut off from their mid lane turret. If Samsung gets a really fast push going here, they might be able to take the turret down, as Cloud9 has to loop all the way back around to get to their base and start clearing this wave.
Jayce needs to hit the minions, but I don't know exactly where he is right now.
Oh, well, they do take down the turret.
Okay, this is really bad by Cloud9. Oh, well, they did land that, but...
Shock Blast. Oh, Smoothie almost deleted, but that's a one-man Shockwave. Ambition wants to be able to find someone on C9, but Meteos has himself a Guardian Angel, doesn't want to be pulling the RekSai into his team. Deadly Flourish is there. Samsung Galaxy just get themselves the mid-inhibitor turret and move on out.
That's why I really personally don't like comps like the one C9's playing, because even though you chunk them all low with a couple Shock Blasts, who goes in and punishes them for being low? You have basically no way of starting the fight unless you hit a huge Nami wave or RekSai gets some kind of nasty flank off. And both those things are really, really hard to do from behind. So even if you do get them low, it's pretty easy for Samsung to just disengage, reset, heal up, and now what we see now, you know, they're back to full health. They're going to be going on setting up vision on this Baron, and you're in the same situation you were before, basically.
Yeah, and look, I like to think of C9's composition as like a really, really sweet gun, just doesn't have a trigger.
That's one way to think about it, Atlus.
Yep. Markz is getting very used to this now. But you can sort of understand that, right? I mean, how are you supposed to capitalize on all of this cool stuff that you have going on?
Right.
If you have no way to really start up the fight, and we're looking at like a bubble maybe landing, a Petrifying Gaze flash, Meteos flash on Burrow.
Yeah, and this might just actually be a free Baron. Where's the Jhin ultimate?
Well, Impact does have teleport. He's going to throw it down now as the Baron relatively low.
Now.
Meteos wants to get himself in there. Ambition is going to be able to take it away though, and now Meteos just 1 versus 4, utterly destroyed. The Guardian Angel may not be enough there as Crown takes a fair bit of damage. Decent aim there from Impact, but that was exactly what you said. Free Baron.
I just don't have any idea what Cloud9 was doing, and we had math class with Meteos, and we learned that 1 does not beat 4. So that wasn't very good.
Yep.
He thought that because he came back one more time that it was 2 against 4, but that still doesn't...
Golf rules? Can we do golf rules?
Yeah, we can do golf rules.
All right. Say like that's a 30?
Well, I'm just saying the lower the better.
Yeah, got it.
Oh my god, really just flashes in and finishes off Jensen. He's playing so aggressive here.
Super aggressive. That's the double kill as Ruler grabs that with a stray bullet. CuVee just throws down the Slicing Maelstrom because, look, I got a proto belt and I want to be pressing that button as often as possible. Sneaky sets up the curtain call, just looking to deal with these minions, but look at these turrets get destroyed. Samsung Galaxy will mow down the last remaining structures, including Sneaky, as the Impale is just impossible to get out of, especially with no QSS. Nexus Game 2 will fall down. It's a longer game this time around, but still very, very decisive. The Samsung Galaxy just looks so on form today.
Yeah, they look super, super clean. Although there was some macro plays that they did make that went unpunished, which I think is partly due to Cloud9 not, you know, punishing the way that they should have. But they looked very, very clean and very reactive to every opportunity that they were given. And so credit to them on that.
Yep, C9 did a good job kind of controlling the Skarner early, avoiding his first couple ganks, but they still didn't make any positive plays for themselves. They had a chance to take the top turret earlier, didn't do that. That kind of slowed them down, and then next thing you know, their bot lane's dying, they lose their bot turret. So if they could have started getting control of the game earlier, maybe that could have worked for them, but C9 was just a little too passive.
Yeah, and I think we're looking at that sort of mid-game team fight that Samsung just managed to completely blow over, go straight into the Baron fight as well. I mean, it was just perfect execution by all of their players. Up until that point, though, Cloud9 was still extremely close. It felt like it was a different story than game number 1. It felt a little bit more competitive. And how much do you think is owing to, you know, side selection, and how much is C9 finding themselves? I mean, it didn't feel like they were as unconfident as we thought.
Well, I think the team composition by Samsung Galaxy makes it naturally a slower game, given that Skarner only has counter gank and match gank potential for the first 15, 17 minutes of the game. And then also Cloud9 did get 2 Ocean Drakes, which enables them to sustain in lane longer. But every time I'm watching Cloud9 today and even last week, it always feels like they're on thin ice, where just at any moment, they just lose the entire game in 1 second. And it felt like that again in this game.
Yeah, and it was, you know, that team fight. I mean, if that didn't happen, Markz, were you ready to jump on that hype train, or do you think there were problems with the draft to begin with?
I personally am not a fan of those drafts. I mean, you see SKT play that draft, and they're up like 5K, and they're still taking forever to close the game out because you have to play it so safe. Whereas if you think of SKT with like a normal draft, they're like running over other teams. And it's not like they're bad inherently, but they're very, very hard to execute. And you see what happens when they give up a single flank, they just get decimated. And that's what happened this game. And that's why I don't think C9 should be playing that way. They haven't shown over the course of the tournament that they're going to play these really clean styles, and I think just more standard team comps would suit them better.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. And do you think that involves mixing up the draft phase? Do we think that we're going to see some weird picks coming out in game number 3? Because it's do or die for Cloud9.
I don't know. They're not really known for being this kind of pocket pick style team. And I think their game 1 draft was suited to their style more, but every time they went for a play, they got outplayed. So I'd rather see them go back to that than stick with this kind of poke comp.
Well, we'll see exactly what happens. But up next on the Player Experience stream, we'll bring you a jungle-focused cast featuring a closer look at the matchup between Ambition and Meteos. So for now, we'll send you over to the main stream, and we'll see you back here for the next game.